The FBI and the Federal Air Marshal Service are focusing their energies and resources on arresting laser hazard perpetrators. And for that, we are very grateful and supportive. Here with us today is Mr. Timothy Childs, who works in the FAM's Information Coordination Division and is assigned to the FBI Criminal Investigation Division's Violent Crimes Unit. Tim will help us better understand the type of criminal that commits these crimes, which is a question I seem to get asked almost every day that we talk about laser issues, and how the FBI and the FAMs are working together to apprehend them. And we've had Tim out to our Herndon office on at least on one occasion recently, and I truly appreciate his support.
Thank you. This is great. I'm very excited about today on a lot of levels. Back in 2008, when we first started this journey, what I'm looking at, it's almost deja vu for me. The first time I got together all the major players in Sacramento division for the FBI and said, you know what, we got to do something about this laser strike. Let's build a better mousetrap. And since then, I've had the privilege of standing up over 15 laser strike working groups across the nation. It's just a scratch in the bucket. I realize that. The neat thing is usually my laser strike training that I do for whether it be judges or a batch of United States Attorney's Office people or district attorneys or a group like you guys of varied agencies represented is it's like an hour long, and all this stuff that you've seen so far today we go over. I've got like 70 slides, and we talk about IFX and type slides. This is great. So I only get to talk about one little piece, and you get to hear other people talk about all the nitty-gritty details. What I'm going to focus on today specifically is the mitigation effort that is going on. There's a lot going on behind the scenes. There has been a lot going on, and I want to share some of the things that we're doing with you guys to let you know what is going on and some of the things that you can do to help. This is not a simulator. This is actually court evidence. From the first conviction, the second federal conviction within the Eastern District of California, the Sacramento Division for the FBI. This is a 32 milliwatt laser at 1,000 yards. And that perspective represents my face sitting on the left-hand side of Star 5, a Sacramento Sheriff's Department helicopter. And the question we get often is, because these are actual lasers from people who, some are sitting in jail, some have since gotten out, some of our cases, stuff like that, is on one level, when we go to educate the public on this, they see the little dot, as you've all seen today, on the wall, and they say, how can that little dot be a problem? From the side of the industry and a lot of agencies, we get a lot of very smart people that are physicists that stand up and they talk about things like eye hazards, MPEs, and some of these other things that you have heard about. One of the silver linings is that to date, and this is not going to be true about the future, I'll talk about that in a little bit, but to date, the power of the lasers, while the planes are, for the most part, traditionally been operating outside of the MPE zone. So we can say to our pilots, here's the good news. You're not going to get your retina fried. Your job is safe. That's the good news. The bad news is that is what is happening right now, even with the small lasers. And I'd like you guys to go ahead and take a look at those slides and look in the lower left-hand corner and tell me if you see anything interesting about that picture. Do you see anything other than a big green blob? What you see in the what would be your lower left-hand corner is the front nose of a helicopter. That a mere 32 milliwatts at 1,000 feet away, there's enough light inside the cockpit being refracted and projected outside that is illuminating the airframe. That's at 500 feet, which, by the way, is close air support for your law enforcement. And for guys like LAPD, where's Mark? LAPD, their patrol height is 500 AGL. Some of the rural guys will patrol at 800 feet. If they want to get quiet, they get up to 1,200 feet. But when you realize where a law enforcement helicopter operates, he's operating between 500 and 800 feet most of his night. That's not a lot of room between the ground and the helicopter. Now, as you look at this, I won't give it away just yet, but I want you to look at the picture and tell me, do you see anything interesting in this picture other than the green blob? Yeah. Do you guys see the letters, the Q, the X, the W? 32 milliwatts at 500 feet away is projecting enough light into a canopy of a helicopter that the light is reflecting, it's spreading out. It's like hitting, if you think of it this way in layman's terms, think of the light as hitting a facet on a diamond. What happens when light hits a diamond? Okay? It gets multiplied in its effect and it gets spread out. There's enough ambient light inside that cockpit that a flat, black, matte, plastic flexible keyboard, that is the keyboard for the MBT inside the helicopter, the light is hitting that black plastic and imprinting the image on the inside of the canopy. Now, I just would like, for those of you, even if you're not pilots, I want you to take a moment to pretend that you are flying at 800 feet over a semi-rural area. You have all your instruments darked out as dark as you can go, but still read your avionics. Your pupils are max dilated. Your night vision is at max. And all of a sudden, even if we want to be minimalistic about it, for a half a second, for a second, for 2 seconds, for a quarter of a second, the inside of your canopy looks like that. Now, how safe is that for an operator? And this is pretty much the take-home message that we need to give whenever we are instructing people. Why is this dangerous? Because it's not getting either less as far as incidents, as you've heard everybody say. The lasers are getting cheaper and more powerful. And this year, I have 2 confirmed reports of civil commercial aviation aircraft being lased, and I mean interfered with, at 30,000 feet. Because we have lasers now that can reach out that far. So could you imagine what's going to happen when one of these 1 watt, 1,000 milliwatt, and they're on the market right now, green lasers for $300 you can pick up, shipped directly to you from Hong Kong, on full power, hits a law enforcement helicopter guy at 500 feet AGL in a tight left rotation, giving close air support to guys on the ground. It's not going to be pretty. And I don't care for what fraction of a second it hits the cockpit. And for that reason, we're taking this issue of mitigation very serious. So with that in mind, I'm going to talk about the nitty-gritty of what's going on. In 2008, we began to have this discussion. Most of the lasers that we were arresting people with are these guys right here. We call them the Radio Shack Specials. 5 milliwatt green handheld. They come with 2 AA batteries in the box. The guy at the Radio Shack store will open the box, put the batteries in for you, push the button, make sure it works, hand you that, keep everything, let you walk out the store. This guy, back in 2005, would cost you $40 off Amazon.com. Okay, this 5 milliwatt green laser right now you can go to eBay or any other place like that and get for 99 cents, shipping free if you buy 5 or more. The same laser that has a 2-mile effective range and a 1,200 foot illumination range that's good for 10,000, 12,000 cyclical hours is 99 cents. Okay, what used to be, you see that top laser at the top, that's a 500 milliwatt green laser. It went on sale in 2000 Christmas. It was a Christmas sale. I was happy about this. It used to be $2,500. It went to $899 in 2009. That's only 500 milliwatt. Now you look down below. Wicked Lasers, who they consider themselves the king of this, came out with the first 1 watt handheld Class 4 laser, the Arctic Blue, which you see, that's the picture there. Hit the market for $299. As of 2 months ago, they began to market a 1,000 milliwatt 1 watt green laser, which they say on their website the beam is effective for 85 miles. They're saying you'll see the tube, that part that goes out in the air, for 85 miles. The guys at Top Laser said that has an effective range of 150 miles. The good news is that these things are being manufactured in China and the quality control is okay. And they're not coming out. A lot of the ones that are actually hitting the U.S. that we're getting a hold of and getting testing, they're running in the 800 milliwatt range. They're not actually maxing out at the 1,000, which is the good news. And that's kind of the silver lining. But according to I had a physicist did a quick check sheet on, he actually analyzed an Arctic Blue. He got a hold of one. He said the MPE for that was 786 feet in his test with the one that he had. Okay, that is, yes, you can fry your retina. It's possible, we understand, given all the variants, at 768 feet. Well, okay, if LAPD is operating at 500 feet AGL, we've all of a sudden gotten into an area that's of deep concern. When the doctor put up that slide, said what the highest risk zone for pilots are, and he listed those 12 things, right? At night, low, slow, flying. Guess what? Every one of those on that high-risk environment is what our fellow brothers in blue in the law enforcement community, the aviation, not just the patrol officers that are flying the law enforcement missions, but the same with the news helicopters and the flying ambulances, the evac guys. Our CBV brothers, our Coast Guard brothers, every one of those low, slow-flying rotary wing aircraft are flying in the highest risk zones and the highest risk missions. And so mitigation is something that we have to take serious. Why a working group model? One of the reasons that I am so excited about the people in this, is the people in this room, is that because this problem cannot get solved on the local level, it will never get solved on the state level or the federal level without a working group model, which means everybody who has their part in the great wristwatch of this thing, doing it and applying their efforts to the problem. The FBI cannot do it by themselves. The FAA cannot do it by themselves. The local law enforcement that has the law enforcement component at the airport cannot do it by themselves. The good news is, if everybody does what they get paid to do, to go to work every day to do, but they do it together, we can solve this problem, and we've been able to prove that statistically. I'm sorry to give you guys on the East Coast the bad news. Part of the reason why you guys are starting to exceed laser strikes on the East Coast within your airports is because for the last 3 years on the West Coast we've been doing laser strike working groups. We've been putting people in jail. So we've seen our numbers go down. So we're hoping to have you guys get on the bandwagon and join the fun with us so we can see some of the laser strikes in Philadelphia, some of those places go down. Why a working group model? Why is it necessary? Location, location, location. Both of the victim, the subject, and the jurisdiction. You cannot get away from having a multi-agency and a multi-jurisdictional enforcement process. And this is why. It's a great example. This is Sacramento International Airport. The blue dots are tower control. And you'll notice with the county map that you can literally have the plane flying over Sutter County. It can get lased in from a guy standing in Yolo County, but the plane will touch down in Sacramento County. Now let me ask you this. Who's going to go investigate that? All you law enforcement guys? You know, you're all going to meet at that county line where the three meet at the triangle right there, and you're going to get out of your patrol car, and your sergeant's going to have an argument for the next 2 hours. No, it's yours. No, it's yours. Well, the victim's in Sacramento. Yeah, but the perpetrator's in your county, right? Okay? And we're going to go round and round and round. What we have figured out is that if we can get all the players in a room, like we have done today, and we can agree this is how we're going to handle these incidents when they happen, and everybody, again, doesn't actually have anything additional added to their plate. They simply do what they do every day. Law enforcement officers find a guy in the ground, navigate local law enforcement car assets, patrol assets to go to a person on the ground. Air traffic control takes a report, radios it in. Everybody does what they normally do. There's just one little slight twist, and that little twist is whom you communicate and to how. This is the FAA notification, the way it comes across as a DIN. The awesome thing about this is that if you ask, as Cornelius mentioned earlier, if you ask, you can have all the information and the stats that the FAA has been compiling since 2005. And I'm happy that since June, the Laser Strike Working Group that we've been coordinating between the FBI, the FAMs, the FAA, CPB, Coast Guard, we've been meeting once every couple of months, getting behind the scenes saying, how can we make this process work better? How can we get our reporting down? We've got a new robust database system. Kick out some great reports for local airports and local jurisdictions. We're very happy about that. The problem is, as an investigator, that's a useless piece of information. First of all, I have to go to school and learn how to speak FAA. Okay, and for those of you in the room, most of you can read that and know exactly what it said. But the first time I ever got one of those emails, I went, okay, somebody translate this for me. What we've learned to do is identify the nature and scope of your problem. Identify the stakeholders for your situation. Personally meet and brief with everybody. There is still a learning curve out there between jurists, prosecutors, as well as the general public. A major component of a Laser Strike Working Group is working with your public affairs office and your PIOs to get a media campaign out there to educate the public. We partner with our fusion centers. We don't leave anybody out. If you want to come play in Sacramento, we had multiple Air Force bases. For those of you who know that air traffic control for Air Force bases is handled by the military. So from the FAA ATC, there's a little black spot where, let's say, Travis Air Force Base is. And so we had to we got OSI for the Air Force on board to make sure that whenever a plane was flying from point A to point B, regardless of what jurisdiction they're in when they reported the lasing, the information got to the right people so it could be handled. After you identified your points of contact with your core participants as well as your part-time attendees, you begin to hold some meetings. We have, like I said, we have 15 groups. We have 7 of these websites up right now. These are Laser Strike reporting groups. Each group gets one of these websites. You'll notice that the gray lines up there are actual approach paths. The triangles are your VORs, and the blue dots are tower control. So that's what the 50-mile circle around Sacramento International looks. And you notice the little green dots on the ground? Those are laser strikes. And so one of the things we began to do from a criminal intelligence standpoint is we began to track and map our laser strikes. As with this case, this is an early map. You look between those two, on the right-hand side, the two upper lines, if you can make out the word Citrus Heights, there's a lot of clusters around Citrus Heights and Roseville. So we realize where most of our problem is and where we can focus our law enforcement efforts. Once we've gained prosecutorial buy-in, because guys, if the lawyers won't do anything with this, you're spinning your wheels. And that's just the reality of the way our system works. And so we made sure in the 7 counties that surrounded the greater metropolitan Sacramento area, I had a primary point of contact in every DA's office and 2 at the United States Attorney's Office that I could hand walk over a case to and say, here, tell me what you want to do about this. Once we get the prosecutorial buy-in, we streamline and bridge the communications, because really the key to this, the thing that makes it work or not work, is the ability for all the various components. Some are regulatory, some are law enforcement, some are private industry like the airport authority. Once they're all talking to each other and on the same page and speaking the same language, this thing runs like a Swiss watch. The Sacramento Laser Strike Working Group, when we stood it up, we used to meet once a month when we were hammering out all the details. For the last 2 years, we've met once every 6 months. Because we've done it. We've done it now. We've put 22 guys in jail over a 24-month period. We did 10 guys a year. Okay? We'll talk about the stats in a little while later. That's what the flow chart looks like, particularly for our foreign partners over there. I know that I've gotten some emails both from the UK as well as Transport Canada. Please come see me so I can get your card. We know that we have a mousetrap. We have a mitigation effort that will work. We have the principles, and we know how to apply it. It's in different jurisdictions and with different circumstances with different kind of assets. So we have the principles, and we know how. And I'd be happy to give you the PowerPoint. We'll send this flow chart over and walk it through what it's going to look like on a personal level wherever you guys are at. I've gotten phone calls, like I said, from the UK and from Canada wanting to talk about some of our successful mitigation efforts and some of the things that we can export overseas. I'd be happy to give you guys all the training aids and materials we have and help you guys out as well, because I know this truly is a worldwide problem. What are we doing for prosecution? Well, currently, thanks to Karen, hi Karen, at the United States Attorney's Office for the Eastern District of California, the friendliest laser prosecution district in the entire country. I'm sorry that we're going to make everybody else just as friendly as you, but we want to thank them for pioneering the federal prosecution of this. We're currently using Title 1832, which whoever willfully interferes with the flight navigation operations. The great news about this is that the max is 20 years and a $250,000 fine. And that does a lot for confessions and plea bargains. So we're really happy about that. We're even more happy about this. And I can say if there's one reason why I'm happy we're having this meeting today is so that everybody in this room can, before you leave the parking lot of this hotel, can pick up their phone and call their senator and say, because we've been working on this for 3 years. We've sent it up the hill 3 years. The last 2 years, do you guys remember that thing called TARP and the financial meltdown or something like that? So it seems like we get right to the brink of getting this passed and something major happens, takes all the oxygen out of Washington, D.C. The last 2 times this sat on the desk of the Judiciary Committee for the Senate. We were so happy when Representative Lundgren picked it back up. We were even more excited when Senator Whitehouse got on board. They have, both houses have passed. It's in the committee to put these 2 laws together and send it to President Obama's desk. We're literally waiting for the president's signature. And then they informed us that they embedded it in the FAA appropriations bill, and as soon as that's passed, then we'll get our law. And then I went over to the goes of the FAA, and I said, isn't this great? And they all hung their heads very low, and they said, Tim, do you realize we're on our 19th consecutive continuing resolution? We're now at 21. Okay. So now we are, our next pitch to all of you out there who are calling your senators and informing them the constituents in their area that vote for them would really like them to pass this law. We'd love to get it unwedged from the FAA appropriations bill and pass with whatever kind of, what? 22nd. Thank you. Oh, the 22nd? Okay, sorry. I'm sorry. I missed one. We were on 22 CRs. I'm sorry. I feel sorry for my brothers in the FAA. I just would not want to. 3 years. Could you imagine 3 years without a budget? That's just, never mind. I'll get off my soapbox on that one. Anyway, we worked specifically with the United States Attorney's Office, Congressional Affairs from FAA as well as FBI. And us guys out in the field, the people out in Sacramento Division were instrumental in crafting this language to make it the cleanest and simplest and most effective tool that we could have. We actually have, because of some of the issues with Title 1832, we have some United States Attorney's Office right now that are saying we're waiting to prosecute cases for this to pass. As soon as this passes, you bring me every laser case in the book, and we'll handle it. And so, if I can say anything up here that you'll remember, please go home and call your senator. Thank you for your support. Tools for prosecutions. We're also encouraging for those of you in the local law enforcement community to get laws on the books locally. The United States Attorney's Office is a finite set of resources. just like anywhere else in government, overworked, understaffed with budget cuts and stuff. They're only going to be able to handle so many cases. In California, in the Sacramento division, for every 10 arrests, about 8 of them went state. Part of that was because of the breakdown between the minors and the adults. So let's say 2009, 2010, of the 10 people we arrested, 5 would be minors, 5 would be adults. So automatically half your cases will never see a federal courtroom because the feds don't handle minors. So you need something to do with the minors. And not all the minors are good kids. Some of them are bad kids and they're doing this on purpose. So you need a mechanism to work with the minors, which is one of the reasons why we were so excited about the FAA 9111 provision, because now that $1,000 ticket can get written to their parents. That's a hint. What happened in Myrtle Beach is that the same thing that happened in Ocean City and the same thing that happened in Atlantic City. As you saw the picture in the earlier presentation, one of the vendors on the boardwalk began to sell lasers very cheaply. And so the tourists would show up at the beach and walk in and grab a 6-pack of beer and their green laser pointer. Unfortunately for the pilots at MCO, their approach and takeoff went right over the beach in the same boardwalk with all the drunk tourists and the lasers. Which is why in 2008 they had 7 laser strikes for the whole year, and 2010, 7 or 8 laser strikes for the whole year, and this year they had 28, and they were trying to figure out what went wrong. Well, we figured it out. We figured it out that there was a vendor on the boardwalk selling cheap lasers. And they said, what can we do about it? Well, Ocean City and Atlantic City both banned them, and they said, we can do that. And so they went and crafted a city ordinance and pulled the trigger, and laser strikes both in Myrtle Beach as well as Ocean City have dropped off the thing. Legislation works. That's the bottom line. It works. And if you give the tools to your law enforcement, it will be effective in mitigating. All right. Suspect profile number 1. They basically break into 2 categories. They're minors with no criminal history. They're high GPAs. They're sci-fi fans. They're Trekkies, guys. That's the bottom line. Okay? That's what they are. All right? And they're out with their friends impressing the girls with their knowledge of Scorpio. And the blinky lights come by, and their friends say, oh, will your laser reach the blinky lights? And then a little voice inside says, this is a bad idea. But she's really cute, and she smiles. She goes, I want to see that. And he points the laser in that direction. And things go downhill from there. I want you to know, I want you to give you, if you're hearing banjos play right now, it's okay. It happens to everybody. You're not alone. This is an actual suspect in Redding, California. Unfortunately, the other side of the spectrum for our laser, consistently, we're talking countrywide, okay, across the nation, late 30s, early 40s, basically living at home with mom still, generally in the basement, with a substantial criminal history, mostly around substance abuse issues. And whenever I interview these guys and I ask them why they did what they did, their reply pretty much goes something like, lasers are cool. I'm not kidding you. That's pretty much the level of mentality that we're working with. And it's not that they don't know. These are guys that go on the internet, they have all day. They're all over the laser forums. They're all over the laser websites. They're uploading their own videos to YouTube. They know exactly how dangerous lasers are. To go to the next level, you can talk to Adam over here from CBB. Wait your hand. Okay. We have acted in both Mark for LAPD. Criminals are beginning to become aware, as we use our public awareness campaign, that lasers are bad for helicopters, and they are actively using lasers to try to get away from law enforcement. We have coyotes and drug smugglers trying to interfere with the CBP operations on the southwest border. We've got gangbangers down in LA after shootings where it's somebody's job to stand behind and use the laser on the helicopter to help their buddies get away. I want to eliminate the myth that, in any way, shape, or form, that this is merely the number, the 3,000 laser incidents that we're going to have over this next year are somehow inadvertently people in their backyard looking at stars where a plane just happens to pass through a laser. 99% of the laser strikes against aviation aircraft are intentional, and we know that because they're tracking. Okay? You got an aircraft, civil aviation, 10,000 feet, 250 knots, that gets hit for 30 seconds. The only way that happens is if you follow the blinky lights. Same thing with our law enforcement guys that are 3,000 feet in the air doing a 1.5-mile circle around a guy for 25 minutes waiting for a patrol car, and the entire time he's doing this, you're having a green laser go like this. Okay? And I have lots of fun. I was going to bring you guys some videos, but I cleaned my laptop off. I'm sorry. I got some fun ones. All right. An example of a mitigation effort. Prior to January 2009, the Sacramento AOR had 1 federal in Bakersfield, thank you, Karen, and 2 local prosecutions, both in Sacramento County. In 2008, our AOR averaged 3 laser strikes a month on inbound, outbound commercial aircraft. Between December and January of 2009, we were able to have 10 arrests, 5 minors, 5 adults. We resulted in 9 convictions, 1 decline. It was a minor. That's a great story. Russian immigrants. The father told us this will never happen again. We said, thank you, sir. We'll come back in 6 months, do a welfare check. And it never happened again. It's good. In 2011, we had 11 arrests over 10 incidents. 4 subjects were minors. 1, again, a declined prosecution with 10 convictions. So our efforts, both with mitigation with minors, has gone down, as well as our overall ability to put people in jail maintain a consistent level. We're in our 3rd year. These are our numbers. These numbers down here are the most important, just because everybody asked us. We're in the federal government, so we have both a calendar and a fiscal year up here, okay? So we have October, all right, to this line, which is October, and that's the number there. So in 2008, 7 into 2008, Sacramento had 23 strikes on the calendar year, 30 in the fiscal year. This is the first year of our laser strike working group. We were able to cut the total strikes in the total AOR by half, and we were able to cut the strikes into the commercial aviation domain by 2/3. We went from 3 strikes a month to 1 strike a month. Okay. The trend continues. This is 2010, and our numbers are going to be lower than this. Okay. Had we continued on track, Sacramento International would be in the top 12 airports. We started at 37 strikes in 2008 within the total AOR. But now we are not even on the radar because of the mitigation efforts. This same mitigation efforts to different levels and to different strengths is happening at airports all over the country, and we're seeing arrests, and with arrests we're seeing news reports. With news reports, we're seeing parents who care about those minors, the smart kids that don't want their ride to MIT messed up with a felony conviction, taking juniors' laser away, and we're watching a substantial drop in the area where we're doing mitigation efforts. What can you do at home? Number 1, call your senator, please get that law passed. Number 2, though, is for pilots, local law enforcement people. If you don't have a laser strike working group at your airport around your group of people, all you got to do is ask. We'll get you all the tools you'll need to stand one up. It takes 1 person to drive the bus. That's all we need in that. The bell curve, the good news is in 2011, we've on our bad people that we don't want to have laters, the late 30s, early, we're getting a lot of the guys that are 20, so we're getting them at the start of that life cycle versus we had a lot more 20-year-olds in 2011 than we did in the past years. Like I said, we're up to 15. I realize there are 427 TSA regulated airports, so we're just scratching the surface, but our goal is to have one in every airport nationwide. We have integration of FAA inspectors as well as the database. We're getting all that information coordinated and tied into the field. Right now, the FBI lab is currently testing material we're going to be able to get out to jurisdictions that don't have air support. We're also researching for certain operational technologies as well as leveraging our federal aviation assets to support laser cases across the country. There's a lot of stuff going on behind the field, and I want to let you guys know that. I've run out of time, but I just want to let you guys know that the problem is real, and the problem is exponential, as you can see in the growing stats, but there is an answer. There is an answer, and much the same way back in 2008 we said that they're getting cheaper and more powerful, and we're going to get more of these. When you saw the stats for the pilots that have gotten injured, this year I've seen more injured pilot eye injury reports than I have in any year combined. I'm telling you right now, with these 1,000 milliwatt, 1 watt lasers that are proliferating throughout our country right now, and the laser strikes getting more in frequency, we are going to start seeing a significant increase in eye injuries. Okay, so we want to try to get out ahead of this power curve as much as we can.